Yeah. All right, you guys ready?
Welcome to, what year is it, Seth, of MGoRadio?
I think this is our 11th year.
11th.
Yeah.
Welcome to MGoRadio 11.1.
Oh,
Or is it
don't you
zero?
owe us? I'm okay.
Is it zero?
You want to change this around? I thought we start with O.
Well, I don't know, man. Well, I thought the radio started with 1. I'm a little perplexed because, yeah, it should start with 1 because we're talking about the upcoming game. And when we have our official podcast, that'll be 1 because we're talking about the same game.
Right.
It's all about the game.
Right. It's all about
Number
the
of
game.
games
So
until a bye week just screws it all up.
we're
Anyway,
not going
this
to do this
is
during a bye. So
this is MGoRadio previewing the Michigan football game against New Mexico. We're here with Alex Drain.
Hello.
Loquacious as always, Alex and Seth Fisher.
how you doing?
I'm Brian Cook, and we turn our attention to the New Mexico Lobos, who have a new head coach from Idaho, the school, not the state, I guess probably both, and have imported a lot of Idahoans onto their roster. So it's kind of like a souped-up FCS team. Is that correct, Alex?
Kinda, yeah. And they also just have transfers from all over. I mean, it's going to be worse than an FCS team just because everyone's wearing name tags to some degree. It's not a full James Madison put everyone on wheels to Indiana kind of thing. I mean, it's
Okay.
Yeah.
probably going to be a little rough.
They've got like a couple parts that they brought over who are valuable. I'd say like the two edges. If you're looking at a 3-4 defense, like the Sam and the outside linebacker edge guy, and then we like their running backs. Their quarterback is let's put it this way. They were really close to. They made the Oregon game a game last year. Idaho did, and the quarterback was kind of the reason they didn't make it an actual upset.
All right. Well, let's get right into it. Let's start talking about the New Mexico offense. Style of play, Alex?
I don't know this one as much. Seth did more of the research on New
Okay.
Mexico.
Yeah,
I can talk about some personnel, but Seth
So-
knows more on this.
Yeah, Jason Eck is was former Wisconsin lineman, and worked for Alvarez, got a start there, kind of walked around his coaching tree. So we're looking at kind of old Wisconsin as far as like the running game. Now they go spread because you have to go spread with the personnel that they have. Jack Lane, the quarterback from Idaho, he is back footer, Mikey Keene kind of thing. But Mikey Keene reads defenses better than he does. He's more just kind of sits there and looks and gets sacked or chucks it up. My guess is mostly they're going to do what like Colorado State did or Hawaii did or any of those teams, right, where they just get the ball out of the backfield as soon as possible and try to chuck it up and win a contested ball. And that's what they did against Oregon, and it kind of worked. And it got them a couple interceptions, and they had one trick play that got them a touchdown, and that was why it was kind of close. The offensive line, this is basically I can just end with the left tackle. He's 6'1", 310 Frenchman, Malik Alian, 6'1",
He's French.
and 6'1". He was he was a center.
Right, yeah.
um,
So
yeah.
this is going to be sort of a punt and pray performance from the opposition when it comes to the passing game. Like just put it up there and down the sideline to see if you can hit something lucky. Nothing else.
Pretty much. They got two former Big Ten receivers. Keegan Johnson used to play for Iowa.
That doesn't count.
He escaped. He escaped Kansas State. Well, they're good sometimes when they leave Iowa, right?
No.
Well,
Who?
what was his What was his name?
Chuck
at Purdue?
Sizzle?
Chuck Sizzle.
Oh,
But-
yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Yes. Okay.
Chuck Sizzle, yeah.
So
We got to give
Keegan
it up for
Johnson
Chuck Sizzle.
is not Chuck Sizzle. He's just a guy, and he was kind of injured in camp, so he was practicing the last week of fall camp, but that was it. No spring and whatnot. He played for Kansas State. He got like 700 yards over 2 years at Kansas State, so he's got some juice. And then the other guy opposite him is a former Illinois receiver, Sean Miller, another dude who just kind of goes up in bodies. And then their slot receiver is 5'11", but he's 194 or 195 pounds, and he's the same kind of thing. He's kind of a small guy who wants to go in Jeremy Gallon it. So they know what they are, right? They're not going to try to be what they're not. The one thing they have are running backs, and this is something that Alex, he put them as high as 8th in Michigan's opponents, which were New Mexico. I think they were last or second to last in every other department. But Alex, I could turn it over to you if you want to talk about the backs.
They got all those guys out of the Big Sky that they had seen at Idaho, and so Scott. Do we know the pronunciation on the Humphrey guy? It's
Scottree. I thought Scottree.
Scottree. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was Scottree Humphrey. I mean, I watched a couple of their games and they didn't even pronounce it correctly or the same way in the same game, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, a little unusual name, but he was first team All Big Sky last year at Montana State with almost 1,400 yards on close to 7 yards per carry and 16 touchdowns. And they also got a dude from Weber State who was second team All Big Sky. So for a program like New Mexico, just grabbing the best backs out of one of the best FCS conferences is not a bad way to go about things. And I would guess that at least one of those two guys is pretty decent, but I just don't think there will be a lot of room for them to run with the state of the offensive line on this team.
Yeah.
So what are we looking for, I guess, in terms of Michigan's defense will be playing its first game of the year? Is there any sort of development that we want to see from a particular guy or two that this already challenges this team poses?
I mean, they're not going to let us pass rush very much, so I guess maybe the challenge is Wink Martindale, just hold everybody back, right? Like Wink Martindale versus himself. Jair Hill, don't bite on any double moves. It's going to be pretty. Stay back and just kind of keep them underneath you. Jack Lane is going to miss some passes underneath and not even see them underneath when they're there. So it's kind of like, that's what they're going to try to do is try to hit underneath as quickly as possible. And, they have a lot of draws to the running backs. So I guess, can Ernest Hausman tackle a pretty decent running back in space? Those are some of the questions that were lingering from last year. I don't think I'm going to get any data on Michigan's defensive line because they're just going to try to avoid them at all possible.
All right. Well, sounds like we're projecting single-digit points for the opposition. Maybe they get to 10 or 14-ish because of substitution late in the game. I
don't know. So Michigan's second and third team are pretty deep. So are they going to start scoring against the Caleb Anderson?
True.
Is that we might learn about that, right? Like last year we had, Micah Pollard when they got down to, the sixth cornerback. And Fresno State, as soon as they saw him, they went after him and they got, a touchdown off of him, and that was Fresno State scored today. And then there was some crazy stuff near the end that, Will Johnson just ended. But yeah, if Michigan's in a game, it's not because of the offense. It's because our offense, right?
Well, let's take a break and come back and then talk about the other side of the ball.
Since 2001, Underground Printing has been the Ann Arbor original. Starting from a West Quad dorm room and growing into the go-to source for custom apparel and Michigan gear. Whether you're gearing up for game day or creating custom design for your team or business, Underground Printing has you covered. With 3 convenient stores right on campus, getting your hands on high-quality Wolverine gear has never been easier. Visit Underground Printing today, in-store or online at shop.undergroundshirts.com, where Michigan pride meets top-notch service.
1, 2, 3, into the 4th win over Ohio State in a row.
Defeats Ohio State 42-27. The final score from Columbus 45-23. Michigan. And I don't know it. Michigan defeats Ohio State 30-24. The Wolverines win it 13-10.
Hey, it's Nick Hopwood, CFP founder and president at Peak Wealth Management. Retire with peak confidence. You can learn more at peakwm.com/mgoblog. You know, I'm pretty good at spotting trends in financial planning and in the marketplace. I think I just found another one. Cheers to 5 in a row.
The only thing we can be sure of about the future is that it will be absolutely fantastic. I'm thinking of the incredible breakthrough made possible by developments in communications.
Arthur C. Clarke's 1964 vision is now reality with SignalWire, a cloud platform that enables developers to build the applications that will reshape the future of communications.
These things will make possible a world in which we can be in instant contact with each other wherever we may be.
You can add cutting-edge, real-time video and audio to any product, website, or application with APIs and SDKs for developers of all skill sets. SignalWire is optimized for high-quality and low-latency communication functionality for video, voice, and text messaging capabilities.
Almost any skill could be made independent of distance. Men will no longer commute. They will communicate.
See for yourself at signalwire.com. Use code 2021 and receive $25 in developer credit. Go to signalwire.com.
SignalWire Communications OGs, original geeks of programmable communication.
Long Road Distillers ready-to-drink canned cocktails are made for Michigan game days. Our lavender lemonade is crafted with our own vodka, real ingredients, and an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. No corners cut, no shortcuts taken. Distilled and canned in Grand Rapids, it's ready for the tailgate, the stands, or your post-game celebration. So whether you're gearing up for the game, raising a can in victory, or charting for the next UFR, take the long road. Made in Michigan, for Michigan.
Welcome back to MGoRadio 11.1. Before we get to the New Mexico defense, we want to thank Underground Printing for starting this and making it possible. Stop by, pick up some gear, and check them out at ugpmichiganapparel.com. Check out our selection of shirts on the mgoblogstore.com. And let's not forget our associate sponsors: Peak Wealth Management, Matt Demers, Realtor and Lender, Ann Arbor Elder Law, Michigan Law Grad, Human Element, Sharon's Heating and Air Conditioning, the Sklar Brothers, Winewood Organics, Community Pest Solutions, Radecki Oral Surgery, Long Road Distillers, and SignalWire, where we are currently recording. New Mexico's defense finished last year 132nd in SP+. There are 134 teams ranked. That means it's real bad. Any prospects for improvement, Seth?
The good news is that pretty much nobody from that defense is back. So
Okay.
hey, they got two returning starters at linebacker. They got two guys. And so our defense, the offensive tackle, I'm sure as a Michigan fans, the last thing you wanted to hear. The offensive tackle's pass rush abilities, pass protection abilities are going to be tested. So they've got a real.
So they have a couple edges.
They got a couple edges. So Keyshawn James Newby gave Oregon a lot of trouble last year. He was going to be out of. He probably would have gone to a much bigger school in the portal, but he was going to be out of eligibility. And then the NCAA allowed guys who'd been at JUCOs to have not count that against their eligibility. Suddenly he was able to play, and everyone had their rosters, and so he went to New Mexico with his old coach. That's a big time player. I think he probably could have been in the maybe not in the draft. I don't know how much tape one game against Oregon can give you, but he was giving them a really hard time, and they had some decent tackles. So Keyshawn James Newby, we're number one. He's their Winovician edge. He does like to come inside a lot, which gives you some opportunities to kind of bounce outside against them. And that's really the only hole in his game. He's wily. He keeps on fighting. He'll get pushed way beyond, and then all of a sudden kind of almost run onto your legs and get back to the quarterback. He causes a lot of it's caused a lot of fumbles. So he's real, and he's probably going to be going against Evan Link. So that's probably going to be if Evan Link is getting absolutely destroyed, it's not good news. But it's better news than it would be if you're like, oh, this big Sky got him, right? I think Yeah. So I think the other edge is going to be Jackson Eck. Now it's really hard to preview these guys, so I'm kind of having to guess. But he was a really good weak side linebacker he's the son of the coach, obviously. Very Wisconsin style linebacker who can kind of go inside or outside. Tall, heavy, neck rolly, runs very fast in a straight line, makes his decisions very quickly. We've seen those kinds of guys come through Wisconsin a gazillion times, and he's probably, against Michigan, if we go kind of heavier, expecting him to be kind of a Sam. Just because they can use him against us on the edge, that gets the one thing they have are linebackers, and the one thing they don't have are defensive linemen. So we were kind of trying to find anybody who could play defensive tackle, and apparently we weren't alone. New Mexico put a Washington State transfer, Gabriel Lopez, who's 6'2", 246 at tackle.
Ooh.
Mercy.
That guy's smaller than Max Bredesen.
Yeah, he was a defensive end last year. Obviously, they're going to go 3-4, right? They're not going to.
This is going to be some 3-3-5 kind of screwery, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
They have no option except to try to fool you on every play.
Absolutely, that's all. Their hope is that Michigan is just not going to want to throw the ball with their true freshman quarterback in his first game, and they're going to probably jam the line like blitz balls. Now, they do have a nose, Brian Booker, who's a Texas State transfer. He's 325 pounds. Problem is, anytime he really goes over 35 snaps a game, his ability kind of tails off, right? He's a 325-pound guy, and that's what he does. So they don't have really any backups. The one thing I could find on the roster is an offensive tackle that they kind of turned into a nose last week. And
last week, you say?
That's about, yes.
So
that's about
this
it.
sounds like a very easy way for Bryce Underwood to kind of slide into college football is to hand the ball off, drop back a few times when they're not expecting it, hit some passes, move the chains, and then get back to running the football.
I mean, their secondary isn't any good either, so there will be opportunities to throw too.
Yeah.
Well, when you're coming off number 132, there's going to be holes.
Well, no one's returned. I don't think it's probably more correct to say that they're like what team you can put together with the Big Sky than what they were last year. They only have 15 players total from their 2023 roster, and 12 of them are walk-ons. So, last year, Bronco Mendenhall came. He was, he brought in all of his own guys. They were coming off of a teardown. So 3 teardowns in a row. There's just no continuity left whatsoever. They do have one guy, and Alex, I think, I was mentioning him to you on Slack the other day. Abraham Williams, their cornerback, he's also their kick returner. He's got 5 kick return touchdowns in 2 years when he was at Weber State. He was injured last year to Idaho State, so they didn't get to really see him much, but he did play against Oregon and looked pretty good. And he made Bruce Feldman's Freaks list for having a really good shuttle and a really good he can hop sideways and he can run fast. So that guy might be able to keep up with a Michigan receiver. I just think that they're going to be bringing guys down. I think that as far as with that tiny defensive line, they've got to just blitz ball the linebackers, which means the safeties have to come down on the edges, and you play action them a few times and win the game, and then you can just kind of go in a shell the rest of the game.
I mean, with a defense at this level, it might not matter that much if they are stacking the box, because you're still going to have your 245-pound nose tackle or 3-tech, I guess, getting it dump trucked on pretty much every play. So I feel like, if you're expecting fireworks on Saturday, maybe not. Touchdowns, yes, but it sounds like ground and pound and just get to Oklahoma without revealing any kind of the cool stuff you put in the playbook so far.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can pound just because they're going to be throwing everybody at the line of scrimmage. So it'll be more like the beginning of that TCU game where Donovan Edwards just breaks loose. So maybe like some big long touchdowns because they just threw everybody at the line and 2 of them ran into each other because one of them was a 240-pound dude. And the other guy is 6'6", 244, the other end, who was Darren Agu. Do you remember him at all from recruiting?
No.
That was what's his name? The 247's recruiting director became Vanderbilt's recruiting director, Barton Simmons. And Bart Simmons was like, I've been doing this for years, and I know that like a guy like Darren Agu is going to turn into a Taco Charlton. And we were like, oh. And then Michigan was looking at that guy too. He never got over 245 pounds. So that's the other defensive end. And yeah, man, like I think if they try, they're just going to throw everything at us and just make sure Michigan gets chunk yards when they get chunk yards. Just that's really the only thing they can do.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break, come back, and discover what we learned over the course of finalizing our thoughts about Michigan's 2025 season.
Hey, it's Nick Hopwood from Peak Wealth Management. Here's some Kalel Mullins and some Gus Johnson for you.
4th down and 9. Do or die for Ohio State. Howard in trouble. Incomplete. Ohio State turns it over on downs. And the Michigan Wolverines will shock the college football world.
But at the end of the day, some people gotta learn how to lose, man.
Hey, it's Nick Hopwood, CFP at Peak Wealth Management. Reach out to us at peakwm.com/mgoblog to learn more. At Peak, we have 25 years of planning and investing experience. We've been through the tough years in the market. 01, 08, 20, 22. And we've learned how to navigate these bear markets. We've learned how to help mitigate losses and limit the losses, unlike Ohio State, who continues to lose year after year and not learn from their mistakes. Every time they call a run play, it's a gift. Which victory was your favorite and why? Out of 21, 22, 23, or 24? Email me, nick at peakwm.com. We'll read your submission on our podcast episode this week. Search out Nick Hopwood to find the Trust the Plan podcast or at youtube.com/peakwealthmgmt.
Hey, fellow Michigan fans, this is Matt Demarest, Realtor and Lender. For a decade now, you've heard me on the podcast talk about mortgages, and I've helped hundreds of fellow Michigan fans in that capacity, including Brian and Seth. But many of you don't know I'm a real estate broker as well. I promise to make buying, selling, or financing homes simple and cost-effective anywhere in the state of Michigan. Whether you're upsizing, downsizing, buying a vacation home, or building a real estate investment portfolio, send me a text or give me a call. It's never too early to make a plan, and the call is always free. My number is 734-882-8194. Again, 734-882-8194. Or you can find me online at realtorandlender.com. That's realtorandlender.com. Whether you want to buy, sell, or finance a home, or even all three, I promise to provide the experience so many of you have come to expect over the years. And as always, thank you, and go blue. NMLS 1011726, Equal Housing Lender.
1 and 2 and...
If you find yourself on the wrong side of the law, you want a Michigan man in the huddle. Call criminal law attorney and former prosecutor Jonathan Paul at 248-924-9458 or visit his website at michiganlawgrad.com. John is a proud graduate of the University of Michigan Ross School of Business and Michigan Law School, and he looks forward to showing you the Michigan difference.
It's the time of year where cracks in your defense get exposed. Good thing the fix is a phone call away. Community Pest Solutions is a lockdown defender for homes and businesses. If you're hearing noises in your walls or attic or dealing with bug problems, it's time to call Community. To schedule an inspection, just Google Community Pest Solutions or hit up their website at pestfreemi.com.
I don't know what you have planned for me. Anything's fine. Call me.
Hi, this is Pete with Sharon's Heating.
We'll turn back to the actual team that we are a fan of, the Michigan Wolverines. We have just completed all of the position previews for the team. These guys did the defense. I did the offense. Thank you, my guys, for taking all that stuff off my plate. How do you guys feel about the defense? How has your opinion changed after putting together everything you could possibly put together about 11 men trying to stop points?
Just the depth of it, really. That's my big takeaway. Like the linebacker preview I did went on and on and on and on. And it's just because it's really remarkable to have 5-6 guys that we have years of charting and tape on and just things to say about. And it wasn't that long ago we didn't have much linebacker depth and edge. Not as much, but there's some, Dominic Nichols we have a little bit of hype for, and some of his class contemporaries, if they can come online, like your Baxters or Edo Pies, get a little out of them. There are a lot of bodies that can play on this defense.
Yeah, you actually gave me some guff, Brian, when we were posting these. You're like, hey man, you guys gotta scale back on how long these posts are, and I'm like, there's so many dudes.
It is true that you have to summarize for the readership a little bit. You can't just tell them literally everything that's ever happened in every one of their lives. We gotta synthesize the information.
I'm aware. Well, Rayshon Benny needs his piece, right? And then I get to trade Pierce, and I'm like, okay, I gotta explain who this guy is, and like now there's Damon Payne, Trey Williams, Ike Awuna, Damon Payne, Ano Etta, like, and at the end I'm just like, okay. There's also Chibi Awuna. There's also Manuel Beigel. Like I did not get into everybody, but they're kind of reached this shark teeth stage now in defense where they recruit what they want. They develop some guys. They also have some portal dudes to kind of fill in where they want to, and sometimes they overdo it because they're not sure people are going to come in. I think that's what happened with the linebackers this year is that they looked around at the end of like in December last year and they go, what do we need? Well, Jay Sean Barham might go to the NFL. Ernest Hausman might go to the NFL. Jimmy Rolder might not be healthy. Let's go get some linebackers. Cole Sullivan might pop this year. He might not. And so they go out and they get Troy Bowles the second he becomes available because, you might need that guy. And then all of a sudden Barham returns. Hausman returns. Rolder's healthy. Sullivan pops. And it's like now Troy Bowles is the fifth guy. And, they think they're going to use him as a coverage dude because he can do that probably better than the other linebackers, or at least everyone but Hausman. But like that's the thing. Each one of these positions we go through, and there's just so many players. I don't know. Maybe edge. Like do you think that like if we end up with if we lose a couple edges, it might have a big drop off? Like Cameron Brandt is not Derek Moore.
Yeah, I think that is a spot where, if you lose Derek Moore in particular, that's probably a step down of noticeable amounts. But again, we don't know exactly what we're going to get out of like even a Nate Marshall, right, as a true freshman. It won't be the same as Derek Moore, but we just don't know exactly what he's ready for.
Yeah, and you could see Devin Baxter, Lugar Gatapai kind of come through this year. Like they had some decent plays during spring. And that was a point you made last year, Brian, in the 5 questions, 5 answers that, players come up, right? Guys emerge. So there are a lot of people that we probably haven't talked about very much who just haven't had an opportunity to play because of how good the team has been. So there's probably, if they get injured, there's some spots where like, oh no, they're going to die. But I think you ask any Michigan fan last year, like, what happens to Michigan if Will Johnson gets hurt or Colson Loveland gets hurt? And
right.
It's like, well, we went ahead and beat Ohio State and Alabama without those guys. So they've got those shark teeth pretty much at every position. They start the season with Jaden Mangum and Mason Curtis at safety. If Rod Moore doesn't make it back this year or doesn't make it back to being himself, one of those guys is going to have to step forth because I don't know if we have anyone behind them who can play unless one of the true freshmen pops. Jacob Oden, we haven't really heard a lot about him. And then cornerback, if you want to really squint and say like where are we maybe not great, because Zeke Berry last year was really good for a guy who moved from nickel at the last minute. But there's a big difference between that and lockdown cornerback, right? And then, Jair Hill had very noticeable. He was always kind of a develop the guy. This year should be the takeoff year for him. If it's not, then you got, Josiah Edmond, who might take that step forward this year. You got Shamari Earls, a true freshman, but a pretty raw one. But has all the talent in the world. And then Caleb Anderson is the 6-year senior of the year that might do something. I didn't really get excited about him watching him, but I never got a chance to do that with the last two, with Josh Marshall and Amir Hall. So it's possible he's those guys anyway.
Is there anyone who you're looking at the tape or you're reviewing numbers or whatever, and you're like, I think this guy has more game than I previously thought? Like, who is there anybody who really rose in your estimation?
Yeah, TJ Metcalf. So, one of the metrics that we like to use is when a guy steps on campus.
We should be clear that this is the elder Metcalf.
This is the elder
right?
Metcalf. Yeah, this is This is the one we talked to, who you call Tevis, I think.
No, I didn't call Tevis. I said Tevis was his twin,
Yeah,
which is not correct.
Right. Yeah, he's a year older than Tevis. Their dad is a coach in Alabama. Their cousin is DK Metcalf, and so these are like football guys, right? And both of them kind of popped during the spring game. But TJ is the one, when he got on campus, people started talking about him right away. And it kind of reminds me, I don't want to say he's Mikey Samer still, because you got to keep that powder dry. But he's a guy who, remember when Mikey moved over from receiver, and they were immediately talking like, this guy gets it. And then he has a quote to the media where he says, "Yeah, I picked up Michigan's defense in a couple of weeks. It was more complicated than I thought it would be, but I got it down now." And it's like, dude, you got Michigan's defense down in 2 weeks? But it kind of sounds like he did. And the way he played, he really knew what his job was in the spring. They still talked about him. He was like one of the first guys to claim starting position in the secondary. So, it sounds like they got a player, right? I don't think they'd be talking him up like that if he wasn't coming through, because they got plenty of other players who they would have wanted to use, or you would have heard about Zeke Berry playing nickel more, and TJ Metcalf sees the starting position in the secondary somewhere, and they're just going to fill in wherever else. And that's, that hits the metrics for us. When I watched him, he kind of was a little bit of Samer still. He's not huge, maybe not as quick as Samer still, just naturally, but has that preternatural ability to know what the play is going to be. So I'm thinking that we're going to like him.
All right, Alex, do you have any changed opinions?
Not really, but it was a good refresher just how well some of the starting linebackers were coming in Seth's grading. Like, is the season passed and then you looked back and thought about it, some of those negative images from the early part of the season kind of seared into your mind, particularly the Texas game of some of those linebackers. And then you actually delve into it, and it's like, yeah, that was a really bad game. But then really by the end of the year, Hausman and Barham were coming in very, very highly in Seth's grading. And so it kind of reassured me about that a little bit, and refreshed that, okay, yeah, there were bad stuff early in the year, but then it improved significantly. And so it's a tandem that I think people should be really excited about coming into this year.
Yeah, I want to make it clear that Barham's pluses, a lot of them came from his pass rush, right?
Yeah.
So you get a +2 if you knock over a guard and then get right in the quarterback's face. But that's not necessarily saying that his linebacking has gotten remarkably better. It's just he had another engine of value, and that engine of value is a key part of this defense, right? Like you already have Trey Williams, you already got Brayshawn Benny that you're dealing with. Like, one of those guys is going to have to get singled because you're going to want to spend an offensive lineman on Jason Barham, and you kind of run out of offensive linemen. And you saw Ohio State one time. I found one, Alex. I found one time when someone tried to block Barham with their running back, and it was in the Ohio State game, and he got held for a second, and he let go of the arm, and it ended up being a throwaway on, I think, the penultimate play of the game. So it was that the third down right before the fourth down. So that's what happens when you try to block Barham with a running back, and I would not recommend doing that.
All right, we're going to take a break and come back to talk about the offense.
Hi, this is Pete with Sharon's Heating and Air Conditioning. You've probably noticed that we are terrible about keeping our podcast advertisements up to date and topical to Michigan sports. Probably because we're so busy doing preventative maintenance for all of our many happy customers. We know no one is excited to call their HVAC contractor, and to make that a rare occurrence, you should regularly maintenance your system. Call us or text us to find out more about the benefits of our preventative maintenance plans, including savings on service calls and priority scheduling. Whatever the season, we want you to be comfortable for that next glorious Michigan victory.
Winewood Organics is Ann Arbor's only cannabis microbusiness. It's a place where plants are grown in living soil, where nearly every product is made, mixed, trimmed, and packed by hand, where first-time customers save 25% on everything from old-school hash to live resin carts. You can find them just west of downtown or at winewoodorganics.com. Winewood Organics, a place where the weed is better. Need help with insurance? Well, longtime MGoBlog supporter Owen Rosen is back at his new insurance brokerage, Royal Oath Insurance Group. Owen might not be the knowledge, but he and his team have the life, business, car, and home insurance knowledge you need. Based in Michigan, but they can also help in other states too. You can call or text Owen today at 586-229-1026 or visit Royal Oath, that's OATH, insurance.com. Whether you just lost a tooth on the field, chipped one at a tailgate, or it's just time to get those wisdom teeth out, Radicke Oral Surgery has you covered. Trusted by Celine and Ann Arbor families for 25 years. The Radicke Oral Surgery team treats every patient like family, and they accept most major dental insurance plans. We're going to have a lot of reasons to smile this year, so make sure that thing is ready. So when it's time to replace or remove a tooth, call up the team that always converts. Visit drradicke.com to schedule. DRRADECKI.com.
Frustrated with your current e-commerce agency? Then it's time to meet Human Element, a digital marketing and web development agency with 20 years of experience building B2B and B2C websites. See us as an extension of your team, accessible, responsive, and strategic. We work with you to understand your goals so that we can build something that drives revenue and delights your customers. So if you're looking for an agency that acts as a true partner in your e-commerce business, visit human-element.com/partner. We can't wait to work with you.
In southeastern Michigan, the yearly cost for a nursing home averages approximately $100,000. It doesn't have to, though. Reed McCarthy founded Ann Arbor Elder Law after handling a tricky situation for his own family. Years of experience later, his boutique firm works with clients across southeast Michigan, dealing with Medicaid planning, long-term care, and tax, disability, and family law, not to mention family dynamics. If you have a family member who may need that level of care, or if you're ready to start your own estate plan, Reed can give you a plan for the future. Visit AnnArborElderLaw.com or call 734-945-9693. That's 734-945-9693.
Welcome back to MGoRadio 11.1. Thanks to Magic Toaster for the interstitial music this week. And now we turn to the Michigan offense. I know on the season preview podcast that I was more down, I think, on freshman Bryce Underwood than you guys. But, in the process of trying to find, benchmarks for true freshman quarterbacks, I came across this MGO blog-worthy 25,000-word project by a Nebraska fan last year trying to project Dylan Raiola. And in the course of that, I kind of thought, that's our comp, is Dylan Raiola. Because, Michigan does not have guys coming out there as a wide receiver. They have some pass protection question marks. They're not going to be plugging in JT Daniels to a roller coaster USC team or plugging, Jalen Hurts into an Alabama team. The level of surrounding talent just isn't at that level. So, I looked at what Nebraska had last year. They had, a couple receivers who were UDFAs. They had a tight end who went in the 7th round. They have a guy who's actually returning this year who PFF liked fairly well. That's a rough Donovan McCulley comparable. They had a decent ground game. Their backs were pretty much just guys, but they could run a bit. And their pass protection was 49th per PFF. Michigan was 82nd. So Michigan's obviously got to improve if they're going to get to that level. But I think, you have Evan Link coming back. You think he made some steps at the end of last year. So you should get something better out of that spot than you did last year. So it feels like a relatively tight, of the recent 5-star quarterbacks who started as freshmen, he seems like about the right level of talent and at about the right level of surrounding talent. And what he was last year was basically an average Big Ten quarterback. He was hanging out just below Luke Altmaier, but, above, Aiden Childs and Brendan Sorsby. No, he's not in the Big Ten anymore. But he was average-ish. And I think that seems like a reasonable Bryce Underwood jumping off point when we're talking about what we expect from him this season. Now, I will say that Raiola was the most talented quarterback in his class, and people are talking about Bryce Underwood like he's the most talented quarterback in the last 10 years. So he may have some upside. He's more mobile, and Michigan isn't going to lean into that they Terrell Pryor at Ohio State, But, they are going to call runs for him periodically, and I think that will help his overall efficiency. And also, I think Michigan's ground game is going to be better than anything that Nebraska was able to put together a year ago. So, his efficiency might be better because, he's not having to carry the team as much as Raiola had to last year for Nebraska. So I think my projection for Underwood is like a little bit better than what Raiola was able to do last year. And that felt pretty good, actually, because I was casting about for like something that felt like a good comp. And once I found a good comp, I'm like, okay, that was an average Big Ten quarterback that's going to feel amazing after last year. He's going to make some mistakes, but he's going to make some plays, and it's just going to feel night and day from the disaster of 2024. So that was my kind of main takeaway from doing all the offensive pieces. The other thing is that I really like the running back duo because they're the same guy. All the scouting is identical for both of them, and they do feel like a good complements for Underwood, because it was very frustrating last year when Donovan Edwards frequently would turn a play that was blocked to get something into not a whole lot. And I think both of these guys have shown an indication that they're elite interior runners in terms of getting to a gap, finding gaps, not just running up the backs of your teammates. And I think that's going to be helpful because Michigan is going to be a team that wants to stay ahead of the chains this year. You don't want to be in 2nd and 10. You want to be in situations where you can be running or passing on 3rd down. And I think both these backs are conducive to that because they push piles, they run through arm tackles. I think it's just a good fit for a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the big question I really have is how much will Michigan run with Underwood, because I'm not sure Evan Link is going to be a Big Ten average pass protector or even a MAC average pass protector. Because the fall talk has all been okay, Andrew Babalola's coming on, so you got a true freshman who might take his job, and then Babalola gets hurt, and it's like Blake Frazier is coming on and might share time. It's like,
yeah, I mean, you just have to believe that he'll improve significantly, right? Because for one, he was a redshirt freshman last year, right? And there's probably a ton of Michigan offensive linemen who have had good, solid careers here who would have looked like Andrew Link if you put him on the field when they were redshirt freshmen. Like, people are talking about Blake Frazier, but Blake Frazier is listed at 15 pounds short of Greg Crippen, basically. It's 14, I think. And if Greg Crippen's getting pushed around, is Blake Frazier going to get pushed around too? And that kind of feels like he's a year away. So it is kind of disturbing that, we get hop on TKA and Sam Webb's like, have you heard about this Blake Frazier kid? And I'm like, yes, but I want to hear about him next year, not this year. So it does kind of feel like they're kind of casting about there. But even if he's mediocre, that's a huge step up from last year, right? Because he was, for a long time, the worst pass protector in Division One, and like the worst in the Power Five by like something like 10 points. And like he climbed up over the course of the last few games to be like not the worst. And Michigan wasn't dropping back to pass much in those games. They weren't doing a whole lot of true pass sets. That data is not robust. But I just got to feel like, year to year, that if this guy is still starting, that he has improved. But, arguing against that is that they don't really have a whole lot of depth on the offensive line right now. Like, I think, FAB is a guy who they would have some confidence in if he had to come in. But like at tackle, Phoebe,
I did it to him.
You did it to me, yeah. But like at tackle, it's like Frazier, who does feel like a guy who's a year 3 guy, but he's in year 2. And without Babalola, there's really no other competition. So it is kind of like we're really counting on Evan Link to just be kind of blah and not, terrible. So not a great situation, especially with Babalola out.
And that's why I come back to, can you try? Because here's the thing: if you get your quarterback hit, that's like the surefire way to ruin a young quarterback, right? If he's constantly expecting something off his back, then that's not tenable. But one way you can mitigate that a bit is if you use the quarterback in the run game, and then the defensive ends are not coming right into the pocket because remember the whole Denard thing or the Gardner thing. Like you can't
well,
afford to do that.
that's true. Like the idea that Underwood is going to be a problem if you let him get out of the pocket, I think will help. It's a Sean Clifford situation where you might just mush rush him sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not sure that's going to be the recipe for success. If I'm looking at Bryce Underwood as a freshman, I'm going to give him the Jalen Milroe game plan. I know he's going to burn me with his legs on a couple scrambles, but it's going to be worth it. So I don't know.
How do we feel about the Brady Norton thing?
I feel relatively fine about it. Like he's got a year of experience where he did very well on a lower level. Like in the beginning of camp, it was like these 4 guys are in the right guard job conversation. And midway through camp, it was like these 2 guys are competing at right guard, and then he won the job. So it doesn't feel like last year where Jadis and Link came from almost entirely off the radar. Like Norton was always a guy who I thought would be a strong candidate to start right away if he came in at a reasonable size, and he did. So this is not comparable to me to what happened last year because we knew that there was an open spot there, right? And someone had to win that job. And just because the guy who was leading in spring wasn't the guy who won in fall doesn't necessarily mean bad things, especially because this is a guy who's transferring from the FCS level. So it's understandable that he might have had some issues early as he adapts to the new level of competition. And then once he got comfortable doing that, he was able to kind of ease past Nathan.
Phoebe. I mean, my
Phoebe.
Yeah, I thought my comp for Norton was pretty close because they sold him to us as like, oh, here's this offensive tackle at the FCS level who never let a pass, who never had a single pressure against him. And I'm like, oh, wow, they probably found Ramczyk, right? Like sometimes there's a dude who goes to a D3 or D2 and pops, and everyone's like, okay, that guy belongs on a higher level, and he goes, and that turns into an NFL player. And then you go and look at him, and it's like, oh, he's 6'2", 270. That's not happening. His weight was not updated after he was a freshman, so that was just not
height,
true. Yeah.
He's listed at 6'4",
Uh-huh.
So not ideal tackle height, and not a guy who Michigan really seriously considered at the tackle position. So I think for Michigan, he is just an interior only guy, but
he's Carson Barnhart. Yeah, I mean that was the comp, right? And he looked like when you put him in the spring game at tackle, he looked like Barnhart against Penn State, where just like he just immediately gets whipped in a way that you're like, okay, he just does not have.
Well, he was
the
more
length.
getting dump trucked back into the quarterback. He wasn't getting teleported right past.
He did actually both happen. So,
okay.
it was ugly, but it was ugly from
but like
Devin
people
Baxter
cite that
and
Stanford game that they had, that Cal Poly had, and it's like, oh, he got an ugly score. It's one pressure.
Yeah.
Because Cal Poly just didn't throw the ball the whole game. He gave up one pressure, and it's like, bang, that's like a 38 or something. So it looks like his one game against D1 competition, he couldn't handle it. But that's not really data, I don't think.
Yeah, he looked like because I watched that whole game, and I went through and tried to find as much tape on him as I could against Cal Poly. Played some schools. So I kind of came up with, I mean, that I'm going back to my comp, right? He's pretty agile, finds his marks. He just belongs at guard. So I'm much happier seeing him at right guard than anywhere else. Now, he was always a left tackle in every level he's been. I think he may have played a little bit of right tackle in high school. So I'm not sure, the whole thing that they said with El Hadi and Link is like, oh, they were on the right side. They didn't belong on the right side because now everything's mirrored. Well, now you're throwing Brady Norton into a position he's never really played before, and maybe he picks it up right away, but I would not, Barnhart was Barnhart after years of being on the field, right, and around. Norton has been a right guard for a few weeks.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily think that's the case. Like, they were practicing him basically all across the line. That's what Moore said. They said that, some of the flexibility that he brings is important to them because, he's played tackle, obviously, and he can move to the inside. And he's talking about, if they want me to snap, I'll snap. Now, they don't have to do that. But I think when you're taking a guy and you're playing him in every position, you think he's pretty good. And you're just trying to figure out where he fits best. And for Michigan, that seemed to be right guard. And it doesn't that's not a problem for me. Like that feels like a natural position battle instead of last year's panic.
Yeah.
So that one doesn't really bother me. And the other thing that was interesting was like the day before I posted the wide receivers, not Chris Godwin. That would have been nice.
I made that mistake during the podcast too. I think we had to cut it, but
Yeah, Goodwin,
Goodwin.
it comes from basically out of nowhere and becomes the second outside starting wide receiver. And it sounds it's largely because he doesn't screw up as much as the other guys. They call him Mr. Reliable, etc. And that feels like, okay, I didn't think that spot was going to do anything already, so we might as well go with a guy who will be in year 2, has some upside as a possession receiver. I like if I was expecting that spot to be good, I would be concerned, but I wasn't, so I'm not.
I was hoping Andrew Marsh talk was real. He's really hard to scout because he's a small guy who was just bodying other small high schoolers, but he was doing
he's
it.
Not small. He's 6 foot. Like he's not huge, but he's not.
Yeah, well,
slot masquerading as a downfield receiver.
I'm just saying. Imagine Cornelius Johnson against guys our size. Well, not your size. You're big. Guys normal sized, right? Imagine, but like you can play like a Nico Collins if you were in high school when you're that size, and he's not going to be that in college. So his game is very much about bodying guys out of the way and kind of being that strong, much more than you would guess from just the looks of his size. He's much.
I mean,
more
I don't
of
necessarily
a
think
threat.
that's something that isn't relevant, even if you're only 6 foot, right? That's something that, like, remember Daryl Stoneham, who just absolutely couldn't get a contested catch to save his life.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's an important skill for any wide receiver, and like, just because he relies on it in high school doesn't necessarily mean like that's going to be a problem in college. Like, there are guys around him will be bigger, but having that ability is still going to be important for him.
I wasn't saying in college. I was saying in his rankings, because what the rankings are based on your NFL potential. So what I was saying is that like Cornelius Johnson, like that guy is someone who's being valuable to Michigan, where the NFL rankings are not going to be as high because they're just going to say like, oh, for the style of player you are, that's not going to work in our level. My guess is it's probably going to work against most comers in the college level unless you have like, a Will Johnson level cornerback against him.
Well, yeah. I mean, you go over the personnel and you're like, how much is the second wide receiver going to play this year? Because you have Samaj Morgan, you have a bunch of tight ends, you have 2 viable fullbacks, and like Jordan Hoffman is going to be a really interesting test case. Like Jalen Hoffman, sorry. Like, he's a guy who would normally get absolutely no run, but they're talking about him in ways that suggest that he could be an important player on this team, or he could just be Peyton O'Leary 2025. Peyton O'Leary is also Peyton O'Leary 2025, but where the spring just doesn't kind of pan out into actual playing time. But the way they talk about this guy is not the way that they talked about Peyton O'Leary. Peyton O'Leary, it's like, yeah, he's real reliable, great guy to have in the room. And with Hoffman, it's like, this guy is special. This guy has ability. And so, but also Max Bredeson's on this team. He's a fullback. How many snaps are they going to be able to get for him? I think he might pop early because I think Hogan Hansen is probably not going to play on Saturday. That's kind of what it sounds like. Marlon Klein is not going to be the most agile receiver in the world. I think he's a Zach Gentry straight line guy, but I felt like there were enough other options that weakness in wide receiver wouldn't be too much of a problem as long as McCulley stays healthy. If McCulley is not healthy, it's like, oh, here we go again.
I kind of wonder with Jalen Hoffman if he's gotten any play as a running back, because right now their third running back is Jasper Parker, who, good news for Jasper Parker, right? True freshman immediately behind those 2 dudes. And you've got 2 great running backs. But, your third running back is a part of the team, is like, that was Mullings in 23, right? That's a guy who's part of your rotation. If you could have Hoffman be just a little bit of a running back, that opens up him lead blocking for Bryce Underwood. That opens up some of the pass routes that he's good at in the flat or in those angle routes. Like, he's so multifaceted. I would love to see them kind of play around with him in the backfield and just kind of change up what he is every single down, so that the defense never really can get matched up correctly. You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess it reminds me of like last year when we were like, oh, if they put Mullings and Edwards out there together, that'll be a real difficulty for the opposing defense to deal with. And we haven't seen that. And Chimp Lindsey is a new coordinator, so it's possible that we're going to see some different things. I just really don't know what to expect. And it'll be interesting to see if there are more screens than we're used to, like how they want to get Bryce involved in the passing game, what kind of creativity they have as a run game, and if they try to zone outside zone again, which I bet they will, and I bet it doesn't work, and I bet they shelve it again.
I mean, yeah. I mean, well, Brady Norton winning a job might also have been part of that too, because that was in his scouting report that he can do that. And
yeah,
but yeah,
it's just they keep trying it. This never works.
Yeah, it depends who you have, right? I mean, do they have that? I think when you look across the line, they've got pretty much everyone but Evan Link can do it. I guess if you have one hole, you can't run it though. So I don't know, man. Like my feeling all off season is that the run game is going to be more tight end based. I think Marlon Klein found something in the bowl game where he just has that effort that turns him into a blocking tight end. And Michigan's shown in the past that they can take any tight end, turn him into a blocker, right? So I think he's on that path. I think that you got Max Bredesen is one of your best offensive weapons. Jalen Hoffman's one of your most interesting offensive weapons. You don't want to run the quarterback. You don't want to throw downfield. What are you going to do? Well, run off the tight ends.
All right, that's it for this edition of MGoRadio. We will be back with the flagship podcast, which will release Monday, discussing the Michigan game against the New Mexico Lobos.
Makes it all night long. She makes a ruska, vodka, singing this crazy song. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. Boris is a mayor and a land surveyor